Welcome to this Connect to the Capitol Extra, where we don't just report the headlines, we're going behind them. A state Senate Finance Committee panel has taken the extraordinary step of calling for the removal of this extra's guest, accusing him of financial mismanagement and dereliction of duty stemming from a $1.8 billion accounting error dating back to 2017.
South Carolina State Treasurer Curtis Loftis has served the people of his state since 2011, managing billions in public funds, safeguarding retirement systems, and ensuring the state's investments are yielding a great return for the people of South Carolina.
But now Treasurer Loftis finds himself in the middle of a spotlight for a different reason. Is this political punishment, retaliation for asking some tough questions and refusing to rubber stamp deals that he believes aren't in the public's best interest?
And why is this happening now? What does it reveal about how power works in state government? And what's really at stake for taxpayers, retirees, and everyday citizens? He's been called courageous, combative, and controversial, but love him or loathe him, you can't ignore him. Today, we're hearing directly from him, South Carolina Treasurer Curtis Loftis.
Mr. Treasurer, it is great to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
As we get prepared for what's going to be a very interesting next week and day for you, the Senate has basically staked some claim here and said, we're going to have to hear from you directly in chambers. This is not something that's been happening in modern history. But before we get to that, help people understand what it is that the Treasurer of South Carolina does, because that's a key question to answer in understanding how all these pieces go together.
In this instance, the primary role is I'm the banker. We are the bank. We house the money, we protect the money, we pay all the payments, we collect all the deposits. So we're the bank, and that averages about $45 billion a night. That's with a B. It's county money, city money, state money. It's all sorts of trust fund money and federal funds. And that's our responsibility. And we do an excellent job of it.
You've described the recent calls for your removal as political retaliation. Can you just walk us through exactly what's happened to get us to this point and why you believe the situation escalated?
Well, I've had a running battle with Senate Finance since I was elected, because I will exposed in fraud, waste, and abuse. And lots of times it's not really those two things, it's just swarmy behavior. And that is endemic in government. And in the old days, Senator Leatherman would take me aside and make sure that I was punished, and then I would be okay. And we'd go back to it. It was a cat and mouse game that we played. And it was all, it was tough sometimes, but it was fun. But it's all changed now. And they're playing for keeps. There are no rules anymore. They want control of the Treasurer's office. It's not that they want to get a bag of cash for themselves and their friends. It's because to be next to $45 or $50 billion is where you get to reward great numbers of influential people, money managers, investors, big banks, accountants, lawyers, middlemen of all sorts, consultants. I mean, there's a long list of people that you deal with as treasurer. When I came in, I started cutting fees. We were just paying too much for everything. I want a man or woman to work for what they get valued, and we're going to pay a fair value. But we cut $2 million in banking fees the first year. I walked into the office, our audit was something like you would have if you ran a canteen at the Little League baseball park. It was 4 pages, it was nothing. So we volunteered. We want the full financial audit. So now we have a firm comes in, it's 90 pages or something like that. They give us opinions on what we do. It's important. We have out-of-state internal auditors. I wanted somebody disconnected, so they're bought for an international firm. They can walk in and see anything we do. So we're very careful about this. Where I'm not so careful is when I'm talking in public and say we've got to have better money management in the state, and a long list of other things. And that gets me in trouble. And the Senate has finally said, we just assume you be gone. And they'd like to have the appointment now, and then change the office so it's appointed as well.
So when let's get down to what really has been what's led to this point.
Yes.
There was what they want to call a $1.8 billion accounting discrepancy. Mm-hmm. There were monies in there's accounts and there's funds, and if you can't remember the difference between an account and fund, watch a previous episode of Connect to the Capitol. We talk about that. But you have accounts that are basically, hey, listen, this is a place where money's held in and to be able to be spent from.
That's right.
And then you have basically money, cash, the funds themselves that go into those accounts. But there was $1.8 billion, and explain what happened with the system, the switchover, and what actually kind of took place, because there's a paper trail somewhere.
It's actually, the cash is in the accounts, not the funds. The funds are electronic representations or accounting representations of cash. So it's like an agency will have a score of funds, money in, money out, all day long, every day. But the bank keeps the cash down here, and the rest of it's just electronics. So what happened was, when we were bringing the big system, the banking system, into the larger state system, it was a tremendous job. It went on for a couple of years, several years, lots of 3 agencies, independent contractors, you name it. It was a big job. But at the end, all the money evidently didn't fit just right. Now, we have the money. We know where it is. It's like your bank account. You know where it is. The problem is the comptroller's books, because it doesn't just take care of our money. It takes care of other people's money as well. And it also, such as the Ports Authority and the universities. But it also takes care of places like, of other things such as budgetary money, which is not real dollars. It's the budget that's passed, and it tells every agency how much you have to spend, but you can't spend it until you get the cash. And we have the cash. It gets a little confusing. The 1.8 was budgetary, 1.6 was budgetary cash. You could not spend that money. And we did the keying, but the Comptroller General sent us a directive. It says, enter these funds, there is cash only. And so we did that, and then we put it aside. 8 years later, it comes back, and they say, well, this doesn't add up. We didn't know what it was. So it took us a long time to find out, and what we found out after all of this time was it was benign. It didn't affect the cash balances because it was entries that shouldn't have been made. And the fix is for the Comptroller General just to reverse it. It's not even a footnote in the audit.
So basically, when Richard Ekstrom was Comptroller General of South Carolina, he came to you as the bank and said, put this in as an item in the system.
That's right.
So you did it.
That's correct.
So was the error in the Comptroller General's office? That's question number one. And so if that's the case, with the Comptroller General having resigned, another's now been appointed, where was the mistake made, and when should it have been made aware to Senate Finance, House Ways and Means, that, hey, listen, guys, we've got this here.
Yeah.
We need to do something about this?
Well, you have to remember, the Comptroller General is the head accountant. So in statute, his law says he is the complete check on the Treasurer's office. That's ancient language. As far as I know, it's the only place in state government that has that language, because it's about accounting. You don't want the treasurer, who's got all the money, to be able to start writing checks, right? You want to have these protections. So he has the legal right, it's in his statute, to send up directives. So he sent us a directives and says, this is what you do. And this is reflected in the Alex Partners report. It says that the previously recorded 770 entries, no, 7,700 entries, I believe it was, by the Comptroller General were ordered to be put into the system, and we did. So we just did the data entry. It's like taking a legal secretary and holding her responsible for what the lawyer dictated, or in anything like that. So we did what we were told because he's the chief accountant. Now, let's just pretend that this didn't come up like it did, and somebody just found the error, right? We would have said, okay, how do we fix it? We wouldn't think anything about it, because you have accounting problems all the time. It's only that the subcommittee got involved, and that's the big problem. And so as it went along, what was the first thing you heard? There's a mysterious bank account with $1.8 billion in it. That was never the case. But they said it, and that went around the world.
Right.
So had it been left to the state auditor and all the other offices, we'd have said, oh, there it is. Yeah. Let's go fix it.
So let's talk about this money real quick, because part of your responsibility is to take the money of the state of South Carolina and invest it.
Yes.
So that we get a return on our investment. And this is where some senators have come back and said, listen, you told us we were making interest off of this money.
No, here's what I told them.
Okay.
They said, and I had a letter in my hand from the Comptroller General again that said that the Comptroller General the state auditor and the state outside audit firm all agreed that the money in the 0993 account is real. It is part of the general fund, and you should present it to the General Assembly for appropriation. Now, you've been around the State House a long time. That means you've got cash, give it to those boys, and they're going to spend it. It turns out none of that was true. It turns out that it was appropriations. And so I didn't move the money because by this time we were studying it, and I said, this doesn't work. But get back to the question you just asked about the interest. When they reverse these entries, not one dime changes at the bank.
Right. So we take
the
question. The question became one, though, Mr. Treasurer, is if we've got this money, and the thing that's being said is that we made interest off of this money.
And we did make interest because the total sum of money is the same. You reverse this 1.8, and I know this doesn't make sense, but this is the error. You reverse this 1.8, the same money is there. The balance doesn't change.
Okay.
So when they ask us, I didn't know where the money was because that's his accounting, but he had said, the Comptroller General, I have it in the letter, and we give it to them and they don't choose to use it, says that money is in 0993. Now, from my perspective, I don't care if it's 0993 or 0995 or any of the thousands of accounts we have, because that's not important to me. Thousands of funds. The accounts are important. So I don't know what he does in his accounting up here, but the total balance is the same. Say you've got $100 in your checkbook. You don't know if it's in quarters, nickels, and dimes. You don't know where it is, but you know it's $100. It's always going to be that $100, no matter what the combination is. In the bank, on the day they asked me that, the money is exactly the same. When they back that money out, it doesn't matter. These are self-balancing accounts that have thousands of entries, positives and negatives.
So essentially, the interest was made.
Yes.
It was just made on other funds,
Yes,
based on other concrete money.
Yeah, because this actually didn't exist. So that was the whole thing. It didn't go into the bank balances. This was appropriated dollars, not real money. So the bank balance doesn't change. Everything I said was true, with the exception of the money was in the 0993 account. And I only said that because the Comptroller General has sent me an official letter, and he is the state's accountant.
Okay. Now, backing up a little bit, you have described these calls for your removal as political retaliation. Do you think that that's becoming more common in state government? And if so, what would the broader cost be to democracy and truth?
Yeah, I think and it's easy for me to say this, and it's very easy for people to say, well, it's because he's talking about himself. This is appalling. It's appalling. Please remember, nobody has ever been, this law has never been used on any elected official since 1895. Think of all the bad things South Carolina's been through. So what they've done is they've decided to use this to get rid of me. Because when they get rid of me, they get an appointed person in, and then they control the money. And this is a terrible thing. And as I mentioned, they can do this to a Supreme Court justice. Think about that. Or a circuit court judge, or a solicitor. Solicitor's messing around with some senator's cousin's business. He can call him in on some pretense and just keep him busy, ruin his life. They talk about me like you wouldn't believe.
So let's talk about then that for just a moment then, because you had an editorial in the Post and Courier where you basically said you're being punished for asking questions.
In part, yeah.
In part, yeah. So how are you going to navigate this tension? Because you're getting ready on Monday the 21st to walk into a barrage of questions and places where the answers aren't in full yet.
That's right.
You plan on presenting them. How are you managing that?
Well, it's going to be awful. I know that. Every time I go, it's going to be awful. I just know that. You have to remember, and again, it's hard for people to think about this, but when you go to court, or we see TV, we see people in court, and this is not strictly speaking a court, but it's close. And this is the Senate who makes our rules and appoints the judges and all that. So when you go in there, and I'm under oath, and they're not, you would never do that. You would never go before a judge who hadn't sworn into the judicial canons and all that. You wouldn't have lawyers who hadn't sworn to the bar. You just wouldn't do it. And so, but this is what situation I'm in. We give them evidence that shows we didn't do something, and they don't have to use it, and they don't use it. So it's going to be a terrible day. We know that. They refuse to swear anybody in. They refuse to give us basic information about how this will even play itself out. So I wouldn't want the lowliest criminal in South Carolina to have as few protections as I have.
Looking back over this conflict or your whole tenure, is there anything that you regret or would do differently?
Well, you get in these battles and it's tough. I don't live for this job. I have a life other than this, and I don't live for the paycheck I get. We just got raises, but for a long time we didn't make any money. And I'm glad we got raises because that was why I was retiring. We could now get really high quality people to do it, because otherwise you had to either have money or you had to skimp, or maybe you want to trade on your office. But now the General Assembly gave us raises, so that's great. Had they given us the raises before filing date last time, I wouldn't have run last time. I mean, I love my job, don't get me wrong, but I have other things I can do. And but this changes the landscape. I try to look at all these things in the big picture. I'm not transactional like the General Assembly is oftentimes. You hear how they'll trade one issue, one issue, one issue. I look at this big picture. If they get away with what they're doing to me, they'll do it over and over and over. And in some ways, they don't even have to get away with it. All people have to see is, look how they treated me. Because it is off the charts. They edit the videos as like MTV so that I look poorly and they look good. They don't present all the evidence that they should. They get evidence from other experts and don't give it to us. These people will be saying, and in fact I know some of them had said, we know for a fact Curtis didn't know. But they won't give that evidence to us.
So you had planned on retiring.
Yes.
But now you've got a change of plan and a change of heart.
Right.
Let's talk about that real quick.
I'm going to run a campaign like you've never seen before. I've got a story to tell. This is not going to be a vengeful campaign. I'm not going to pick on anybody, but I'm going to tell the truth of what's happened. The people of South Carolina need to hear it, and I don't care what it costs me, I'm going to pay. I've set aside an unseemly sum of money to do it because I'm going to tell this story, and I'm going to have to buy the time to do it. And I think when I'm through with it, the people will have a much better understanding of what it's like in Columbia.
Mr. Treasurer, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for an appear.
This is a clash over control, over transparency, and ultimately over who gets to speak up and who gets shut down in government decision making.
We'll have more on Monday the 21st as the Senate and the Treasurer meet face to face as we keep you connected to the Capitol. Thanks for watching.